This is again one of the things that you want to align yourself with your school's values. So if
Yes.
your school has a certain way of entering the classroom, by all means, you need to follow that. And really to show solidarity with your staff and your school culture to build it. Because I know, like, I've been part of the camp where, like, but I do things my own way, and it's not me to do this or that or whatever. But I think now, like, just jumping out of my own sort of um, would say stubbornness sometimes. I think it's important for your whole school to be developing that together because it shows solidarity and it avoids the potential for students to then say, "Oh well, sir allows me to do this," and then you just cause a mess. So I think routines make sure they are based on what your school has established. So if your principal or your head teacher or deputies all have an edict for the staff that this is the way we are going to be entering the classroom and these are the key foundational rules that we have, you need to make sure you start with that. That's a very, very important. And then you start off with that respect sort of thing. Some young teachers, even teachers that have been in the classroom for a while, will go into the classroom thinking that you're going to develop a friendship with the students, because it's going to allow you to then be friendly with the kids. But remember, you're the teacher. There is a power dynamic that needs to be adhered to in the classroom, and I think
Yes.
routine wise, you need to make sure you establish what are the absolutes in your classroom. This is what must be done. So I know, for example, one of the first things that I will always wait for is make sure that everyone walks in. Like at our school, you have to wait two lines outside, and students walk in one line at a time. And the teacher greets every single student at the door, which is fantastic. I think that's a great routine. See how their day is going, good morning or good afternoon, depending on the period. And then they go and stand behind their desks and wait for the teacher to say, "Okay, you can have your seats now." Um, Again, this is just I'm just speaking from my context. This is what's happening in my
Yeah.
current teaching environment. But then once they're all seated, and that's all the school stuff, then I will go through. Well, these are Mr. Manny's expectations in the classroom, and one of the big things for me is if I'm talking, all eyes to the front. We have laptops, so your laptop screen should be down, eyes up the front, looking, focusing, and no one else should be talking when either Mr. Manny's speaking or you have a peer talking
Yeah.
in class discussion. Like everyone needs to be paying attention. And I make sure that that's one of those big things. And I establish that under the guise of respect. Um, we're being respectful. And it's just, that's like a non negotiable for me when I do establish my classroom. And I will drill that in for the first 5 or 6 weeks. Sometimes you might even spend 5, 10 minutes not doing any teaching because um, kids just in their own world, or they may have had, something going on. But you'll find after half a term or so, they start to understand, okay, these are the expectations. This is what is needed of me to, be a contributing member of this classroom. So yeah,
Yes.
look, no talk when the teacher's talking, eyes at the front, respect values. Like these are things that I will really drill into the routine. And I think also,
Mhm.
one of the biggest things that sometimes teachers will get flustered with is, oh, but look, if it's just constant behavior management in the first term, I'm not going to get any teaching done. Look, you'd rather do behavior management for 5 weeks and then have most of your year where you're doing learning, or you could do something like talk over the kids every time they're entering the classroom, but you spend the whole year doing no learning whatsoever. So put in the hard
Yeah.
work with your routines nice and early, and then come in. And again, this is where your individual routines do come into play. This is where each of us are very different in the way that we approach our classroom. But I will say, well, once again, you are the teacher, they are the students. There is a power dynamic there which needs to be adhered to. They are not your friends. Um, However, in saying that, later on down the track, you can have a very respectful relationship with your students. And there's a very big difference between that and that friendship that I sort of alluded to
Mhm.
earlier on.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's one of those routines that I think definitely would
Yeah. I
establish.
definitely align. Yeah, I definitely align with a lot of what you said, Adriel. A lot of your suggestions are kind of best practice, what we see modeled to us as well from mentor teachers, and they absolutely work. They take time, but
Yeah.
you're so right. Once the students understand your boundaries, they will adhere to them. And then if you have them again in the following years, you find you don't have to work as hard because they kind of remember what you
Yeah.
expect, and you're just like fine
Yeah.
tuning. I remember getting a tip from somebody like, if it was a really difficult class where you didn't necessarily want to be like, well, I'm the teacher and these are my rules, even though we're thinking that anyway, but you wanted to,
Yeah.
manage your approach a bit, well, these are the rules of this classroom. And it kind of
Yeah.
creates like a separate layer. Like, it's not Miss Koloska telling you it's got to be XYZ, is the rules of room 23 or room 50 or,
Yeah.
room whatever, this English room,
Yeah.
this maths room are XYZ, and it kind of alleviates that feel of
Yeah.
hierarchy if you're going to have a class that might be waiting to just test your boundaries. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's good. I know I do the lining outside a lot, like particularly for me as a person who's fairly short and petite in stature.
Mm.
It's not
Mm.
uncommon to have year 7 kids that are almost as big as I am. So for me, lining up outside and then me standing to the side where they're not obstructing me and getting their attention was very important those early
Yeah.
years for me, because it was that
Yeah.
moment to be like, okay, I'm starting, you need to listen, even kind of, and then saying what I need to say, and then getting them in the room. So I think there's so many strategies. I love a do
Yeah.
now or something on the board as well.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
helps to the kids know, and you can say to them at the door, morning as you come in, there's a do now, morning as you come in, get started with what's on the board. And then
Yeah.
I like that too, because you can have like a little check-in while they start. If you see if there are some students taking a bit of time or their body language looks a bit off,
Yeah.
it's like the perfect opportunity at the start of the lesson to go do a bit of a check-in as well, because
Yeah.
think that makes a big difference to the students' emotions and how they're settling into the lesson.